What's up everyone and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Today, let's get started with Alex Pereira and Magomed Ankalaev is not an option for UFC 310. Following the recent news that Belal Muhammad can no longer fight at UFC 310, there's been extensive buzz about whether Alex Pereira could step up again and save the day. But as this video is being produced, it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. As you likely know, Muhammad was supposed to fight Shavkat Rakhmonov in the headliner of the December 7th card. And before we continue, make sure to leave a like on the video to help support the channel. But due to a nasty bone infection in his foot, the welterweight champion won't be able to compete until next year. Since Pereira has made it a habit of stepping up and saving headliners that have fallen through, a lot of people immediately wondered if Petrosyan vs Magomed Ankalaev could serve as the new main event for UFC 310. MMA Fighting, however, is reporting that the outlet's been told Pereira is not being considered for the year-end pay-per-view. This is despite Chael Sonnen's recent claim that Pereira and Ankalaev have indeed agreed to fight on December 7th.
Do you want me to tell you what they're going to do? All right, they're putting Ankalaev and Pereira in. They're putting Ankalaev and Pereira in. There you go. That's the answer. But I didn't want to get right to that because first off, that isn't signed. But that has been offered and that has been accepted.
But social media posts from Ankalaev seems to confirm what MMA Fighting is already reporting. Pereira has not agreed to fight on December 7th. Alex, keep running. I'm gonna beat Alex, and I will give him immediate rematch as he deserves. I will stop him back-to-back Chama. If Pereira has indeed passed on the opportunity, no one should be too surprised. After all, the light heavyweight champion has fought 4 times in the past calendar year. And following his stoppage victory over Khalil Roundtree in October, Petrosyan said that he wants to take a bit of a break. So some folks are wondering if the former welterweight champion, Leon Edwards, might agree to battle Rakhmonov at UFC 310. If he did, and if he won, that could move him into a rematch with Muhammad. If you're wondering about Ian Gary as a possibility for Rakhmonov's new opponent, well, recently the UFC announced the rising welterweight is going to battle Joaquin Buckley. That fight is going to headline the UFC's December 14th card in Tampa. Joaquin Buckley reposted an old video on Instagram of Ian Gary saying he didn't want to fight Buckley because of his low ranking. Check this out.
You're not ranked.
Okay.
You were offered to fight a ranked guy.
Okay.
You said no.
Okay, that's true.
Right? Then you said, why don't you fight me? You're in this now, right?
I gotta get a middle
I'm
game.
fighting 8 in the world. Why would I look down when I'm going this way?
Yeah.
You should be calling me out because I'm up there.
Yeah, right.
That's the right thing.
That's the right
but
thing.
Why would I go backwards when I'm trying to be the best in the world?
Because I got a
that
name.
does not. I don't give a you got a name.
Damn.
If your ranking's not higher than mine, nothing to do with it.
You want that too.
So what do you think? Could Pereira be playing hardball and asking for a big stack of cash before agreeing to save UFC 310? Shavkat posted this on Instagram with the following caption: "Waiting for the interim title, ready for anyone." Belal Muhammad said that there's no need for an interim title because he'll only need 6 weeks to recover from this infection. Here's what Belal had to say.
I can see them trying to do something with Shavkat, but he's calling for an interim title fight, and it's like, interim title fight, bro. It's 6 weeks, not a 6 months that I'm off. But even for myself, if they want to just do that just to make it a main event, I mean, I don't really care about it if they want to make an interim title fight, regardless, because they know who has the real belt. So for me, I know who my next opponent is going to be. If it ends up being him, and the only person really that makes sense right now would be Kamaru, since Buckley and Gary are out. And you said, I think JDM's injured, so there's really nobody else out there. But
Aljamain Sterling's sparring footage with Bryce Mitchell. Aljamain Sterling is ramping up his camp big time ahead of his upcoming scrap with Movsar Evloev. After shared footage of a pretty intense sparring session he had with Bryce Mitchell. The former bantamweight champ is booked to fight the undefeated Evloev at UFC 310 December 7th. In a recent video documenting Sterling's training camp for the scrap, it showed him and Mitchell sparring in the cage. Meanwhile, Mitchell has not fought since his consciousness was violently blasted into orbit by Josh Emmett last December. The ridiculously tough featherweight had this to say about training with Aljo. "Well, today with Aljo, I'm trying to survive another hard training session. If I get out of here injury-free, then I'ma thank God because, I'm just grateful for every round that I get to do because this is hard training, bro. We don't hurt each other, so that's a good thing. There's no ego, bro. Some of these guys try to hurt each other, but we're just trying to work. That's all we care about, is getting better, and Aljo has never had that ego." It'll be interesting to see who Mitchell faces in his return, and whether he can start stringing some wins together again. As far as Sterling versus Evloev, do you see they're adding a win to the Russian's loss column? John Jones fires back at CRITIC for comment. As the MMA world gets ready to watch John Jones' first fight as the UFC's heavyweight champ, it sounds like we could see a slimmed down version of the polarizing star. Jones is booked to fight former champion Stipe Miocic at the November 16th event. It'll mark the first time Bones has fought since he laid claim to the heavyweight crown in March of 2023 by quickly submitting Ciryl Gane. The former light heavyweight champion has been sharing video footage of him lifting weights and training ahead of UFC 309. Case in point, more recently, the 37-year-old reported via Instagram that 240 pounds, fast and strong. I used to walk around at 235 as a light heavyweight. This almost feels like a light heavyweight fight without the weight cut. This is interesting to hear for sure. If you recall, when Jones showed up at Fight Week for the Gane title fight, some folks were less than kind while discussing Bones' physique. The term dad bod was thrown around, and Jones ended up weighing 258 for that fight, but it certainly sounds like that won't be the case for UFC 309. Speaking of Jones' critics and haters, recently the renowned fighter tore into a fan who accusing him of ducking Tom Aspinall. Fan: Jones went to a decision with Anthony Smith and got by Reyes and is now ducking Tom. Jones: I guess when you're as good as I am, you're not allowed to go to a decision. That's funny. I've had 2 close fights since you were in elementary school. Now you finally get an Instagram and want to type your opinion. I hope you feel empowered, seriously. All that aside, what do you think of Jones' report about his weight? And does this impact at all how you see the fight with Miocic unfolding? Up next, MMA community reacts to Israel Adesanya showing respect to Alex Pereira. It really wasn't that long ago when the feud between Israel Adesanya and Alex Pereira was widely considered to be one of the most intense in all of MMA, but now that the stars have thrown hands not once, not twice, but 4 times, it seems clear that the two have nothing but respect for one another. Ever since Adesanya ended his 3-fight losing streak to Pereira by bombing out Poatan at UFC 287, increasingly, the two have been praising each other. In fact, Pereira has even said that he'd be down to train with Izzy if it becomes clear that the two will never fight again. Well, if you need more evidence of whether Adesanya respects Poatan, recently the former middleweight champion politely shut down a fan who reported that he hates Pereira.
He's all good. He's really good. Show him respect. He's really good. Don't worry, I beat him already, so you can be a fan.
Not surprisingly, the clip prompted plenty of interesting responses online. For example, Darren Till had this to say: Izzy wouldn't be saying these things if he wouldn't have beaten him. And here were various responses from fans, some of which sided with Till's contention. Israel Adesanya and Alex Pereira will go down as forever legends and architects of one of the greatest rivalries in combat sports history. Just move on and respect them both for what they've done for the game of mixed martial arts. It's that simple. Israel Adesanya and Alex Pereira's relationship has reached the point where it's just respect now. They've had their battles, and they both know that they're not facing each other again, so it's a mutual level of respect. We've all played that game where there's that super boss that you finally end up beating, so now the game is 100% complete to you, and you only want to beat it the one time. That's Alex for Izzy. At least Izzy at peace, knowing he got to KO one of the best fighters from the past 4 years. Respect. Adesanya always had this trait of appreciating fighters despite personal feelings. What's your take on all this? Would the last stylebender be talking like this if Pereira had defeated him yet again at UFC 287? Herb Dean fires back at the MMA community for comments. Herb Dean took some serious heat for how he called the UFC 306 headliner between Sean O'Malley and Merab Dvalishvili. And recently, the noted referee defended his officiating of the bout again. Some fans and observers, including UFC commentator Joe Rogan, didn't care for how Dean reportedly told Merab to keep working, even when he was in a dominant position over O'Malley. Not long after the September 14th bout, Dean defended his actions. More recently, Dean was asked about the criticism that was sent his way while appearing on the Jackson podcast. Here's some of what Dean had to say in his defense.
They're saying that I shouldn't be telling the guys to work. And so this is something I've always done. Our sport, we have rules that are there for safety. We have rules that are there for fairness. We have rules that are there to build our sport, to make our sport what it's supposed to be, to make our sport exciting. And just like there's rounds, when it first started, it was you could lay on the ground and do whatever you wanted for how long. And there's a rule, we can stand the fights up. 2 things that are the most important things before I intervene. The biggest intervention is when I'm going to stop your fight. So you always hear me say, fight back, fight back. That lets me know, so it's not a surprise to him. When you hear me say fight back, that means I'm about to stop your fight. That means do something that lets me know.
Do you agree with Herb Dean here? Did anything he said change your initial opinion of how he called the fight? Or do you think his stance on this detracts from the original spirit of MMA, like Rogan has repeatedly argued over the years? Armen Petrosyan calls out Shara Bullet for rematch. Ever since Sharabuddin Magomedov's jaw-dropping KO of the year candidate at UFC 308, the MMA world has largely been focusing on who Shara Bullet could face next. But the man who fell victim to the middleweight's double-spinning back fist, Armen Petrosyan, is calling on Magomedov and the MMA world to slow their roll. Magomedov faced Petrosyan at the recent card, and in round 2, he electrified the galaxy by putting Petrosyan away with consecutive spinning back fists. After the fight, Magomedov made headlines once again by calling for a showdown with fellow highlight reel striker Israel Adesanya. But Armen Petrosyan clearly has a different take on the fight's result, and what should come next as well. While talking to Red Corner MMA recently, the Russian middleweight said this: "It was a lucky punch, but I was still conscious. I was still in control. I heard the coaches shouting. It was the end of the round with just 30 seconds left, so I kept working. He caught me. I thought he would go for the finish, but he apparently didn't, so I looked up and saw the ref going like this. I didn't understand what's up, and many other people didn't understand. I don't consider it a loss. He got gifted a win. Of course I would like to get the immediate rematch to annul this fight." It's true that Petrosyan never appeared to be out cold, and the fight was certainly far from a blowout. In fact, early on, Petrosyan appeared to stun Magomedov, and for a few moments, it looked like he might hand the Dagestani fighter his first MMA loss. But the chances of a rematch anytime soon seem very, very low. The Shara Bullet hype train has never been moving faster and with more passengers, so one would think about with an established big-name middleweight is likely next. Merab Dvalishvili goes off on Umar Nurmagomedov. It remains to be seen if and when Merab Dvalishvili and Umar Nurmagomedov end up fighting, but it seems clear by the time they do, there's gonna be no shortage of bad blood. Ever since Dvalishvili took the bantamweight crown from Sean O'Malley at UFC 306, the new champ and Nurmagomedov have been going back and forth via interviews and social media. Merab has continued to argue that Nurmagomedov doesn't deserve a title shot, even though he's gone 6-0 in the UFC and beat longtime contender Corey Sandhagen. Then the two went to war over when the fight should happen. Nurmagomedov wanted it to take place before Ramadan begins in late February. That ultimately prompted reports that Nurmagomedov and Song Yadong were going to fight in December, before it was clarified that was not going to be the case. Well, following a recent post from Nurmagomedov in which he said Yadong was injured, Merab went off on the Dagestani star. Don't be fooled again by the BS coming out of Umar's lying mouth. Yadong didn't pull out of any fight. He was ready. Umar didn't sign. Keep talking crap. You need to work hard and fight other contenders to be the #1 contender. You're being given a gift from the UFC, as everyone knows, without earning it. I can't wait to smash your face and every lying word that comes out of that mouth when your time comes." He then followed up by saying, "I said it 100 times, and we're going to say it again. If UFC wants me to fight Umar, next, I will fight him." Umar Nurmagomedov went off on Merab Dvalishvili this morning on Twitter, saying, "What's the point of your words if there's no action behind them? I don't have a scheduled fight right now. Yadong is ready to fight in January. If you're not going to defend the title, I'll take this fight to earn more money and make a name for myself. I'm ready to fight anyone in the UFC offers me because I want to be the best. A champion is someone who's the strongest, who's willing to fight anyone, not someone who picks and chooses, who has earned it, or who still needs to prove themselves. I don't want to disrespect Merab. If I somehow did, then I have no problem apologizing. He's someone who came up from the very bottom and became a champion. His journey deserves respect. He's a true hard worker. Between him and me, it's only about the championship belt. There's no reason for any insults. When our fight is scheduled, we'll find out who's stronger, and that's all there is to it. If I'm lying about anything, you can ask the UFC. The UFC asked me if I was ready to fight for the belt on December 7th, and I said yes. The only date I declined was March because Ramadan is the entire month. I'm not asking anyone to accept my beliefs or to accommodate me. I'm a realist. I understand that by making this choice, I may lose my chance to fight for the title, and I'll deal with the consequences myself. I think that if Merab fights someone in March, he won't be ready to face me until December 2025. But if they let me fight him in May, then as long as I'm healthy, I'll be ready to fight twice more before the end of the year." Manager Ali Abdelaziz went on X to say, "Just wanted to make this clear. Song Yadong was the only person willing to fight Umar Nurmagomedov. UFC wanted to make this fight December 14th main event. Song wanted January. Umar was already promised a title shot, but he's not waiting for anybody. His goal is to beat Khabib's record. Let's be real. Merab is the champion. The champion decides when he wants to fight. Give us a date. February, May, it doesn't matter. Enough talking. Let's just fight. Let's keep it respectful. The fight between Merab and Umar is inevitable." There you have it. Does all this mean that Dvalishvili versus Nurmagomedov is a lock for the second quarter of 2025? What do you think? UFC updates. Dana White revealed new UFC rules that will be implemented this weekend in UFC Edmonton.
For those of you watching tomorrow the rules changed. The 12-6 elbow is now legal tomorrow, and the grounded fighter rule where you put one hand down on the ground, gone. So you can't do that anymore, and 12-6 is legal. Tomorrow night's fight night.
On the topic of UFC Edmonton, it was revealed late Friday night that Derrick Lewis is out of his UFC main event against Jonata Denise. The fight is now officially canceled and off the card. Derrick Lewis successfully made weight on Friday morning but failed to show up during the ceremonial weigh-ins later that day. At the time, it was revealed that the fight was still on, but later, the UFC pulled the plug. We don't know why Derrick Lewis is out of his fight, but the reports made it clear it's a non-weight cutting related medical issue. Arman Tsarukyan versus Islam Makhachev is in the works for UFC 311, according to Manuk, who is an MMA reporter for the LA Times and Fight Hub TV. It's also being speculated that this event could take place at the new $2 billion Intuit Dome in Los Angeles. Who do you think will win between these two? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Top comments. Does Conor forget he pulled out for something much less? Bilal's foot looks so much worse compared to Conor's. Yet here comes Mr. Limelight trying to stay relevant. Just go home, Conor. Conor on too much nose candy. His opinions don't matter anymore. Conor's doing anything for a title fight except actually fighting.